Sons of the Forest releases tomorrow, but the developers has given us 5 tips for surviving your first night. Alongside giving us 5 tips, there's a few sort of clues which answer a few questions and hint at potential ideas and things that we could definitely see on that first night, which is going to make things quite difficult. If you're a fan of the Forest, subscribe to the channel, drop a like on the video because we're going to cover it here in full, and we're going to be streaming it on the release date at 9 PM GMT, so stick around for much more. So these developers have given us 5 tips for surviving that first night, and these tips are pretty damn interesting. Some of them are, I feel like they have some sort of clues or cues in them which are going to be giving us a little bit of a hint at what we could potentially see, especially towards the later stages of the game / mid-game. Very interesting. We're going to go through these tips, and I'm going to let you know my thoughts on what I think they're sort of hinting at through certain points.
There's a lot of refuge that you can scour through. Make sure you collect everything that's where you are, where you've landed. And then probably also be careful where you set up your base. Setting up in the snow is probably not a great idea initially. You want to be probably near a water source, definitely would help. And you have ready access to trees and collectible resources like plants. And it'd probably be a good idea for players to take note of what they find, where they find them, so they can come back and collect them again. A key part is once you've found the resources to build something that, like a healing herb or something like that, it would be good that you know where to come back and get that healing herb.
So our first one there is definitely collecting everything and anything that you can see. Now that is just, I think, a good tip for any survival game, especially if you are a player like me that decides to hoard everything and fills your backpack to the brim. If you can't fit any more in there, then you need a bigger backpack. It's as simple as that. Something they did say is keep an eye on where you build your base. Now, they're implying that we're obviously going to need to build a base nice and early on because of, well, cannibals and everything else that's out there. But picking where you should place it, they did say not in the snow. So we could potentially be starting the game in those winter months, which is definitely going to make things a hell of a lot harder. And obviously enemy territory. If we set up in the wrong territory, will we get absolutely bombarded on the first night? There is definitely a potential for that, judging by something that they say later in this. Another thing is keep an eye on resources and locations that you find them. Now, I'm hoping that the PDA that we've seen, obviously it's marked cave entrances, home areas, so we could potentially add our own markings to that. If we can add our own markings to that, we'll be able to note these resource locations. That makes it a hell of a lot easier to go back there later game to find specifically the things that we need.
I mean, I think a shelter is key. And then defenses for the shelter probably help, like walls and perimeter type stuff. The game is deeper in the building than the forest, so I would look into the things you can do to make your structures more durable and stronger and more defensive. We're putting a lot of depth and time into making that complexity there, so it's more interesting.
So going back to setting up our bases, they do say that the structures and the building is much more complex than the original game. Obviously for the older players that do like the original blueprint system, that is still in there if you do want to use that. But they've said things are much more defensible now. We can create much more in-depth defenses and make our base more of a fortress than we ever could before. So that does, I think, point to the fact that we could definitely be getting attacked on that first night. Obviously, we've just had a massive crash landing of a helicopter. Cannibals, everything else is going to be wondering what the hell that was. So, as an introduction, we could see something pretty damn dicey happen within the first few hours of gameplay.
Conserve your ammo. Even though the game now has new weapons in it, doesn't mean you're going to find crates and crates of ammunition. So you might not want to, unload a whole clip on a turtle or something. Hold on to those bullets.
Now, typical forest fashion, everyone goes for the turtles. Everyone goes for the turtles. But finally, we have something confirmed that ammo is going to be relatively scarce. Now, we did know, well, we guessed at this already, but knowing that is quite nice. It is definitely going to be something in the back of a lot of people's minds, conserving ammunition and knowing exactly when to use it, because you do not know when you're going to find your next batch of ammo. How difficult it is going to be is yet to be seen. Are we going to see, let's see, I don't know, a couple of rounds every few days, or are we going to go to certain locations, mainly later game, to find ammunition? Hopefully there's enough supply to keep us going for a little bit.
Another other good thing is probably to avoid paths that are traveled by other characters on the island, and keep your distance and maybe observe before you engage. They will be prepared for you more than you are for them.
Observing the enemies is something that is pretty much an integral part to the forest anyway. They are, especially the original game, being able to watch what they do and how they develop was really something quite interesting. And obviously this game, with their enhanced AI, their thoughts, their feelings, and their capabilities of working together to bring up strategies, plans, retreating to do certain things, is definitely going to be something you're going to want to do, especially early game before they've actually got any experience with you. Seeing how they react at first is going to be something that's really cool. Even when you've maybe fired a couple of shots or scared them off a little bit, how they engage with you and react to that is quite interesting. Going to be a very cool feature, and something that I am definitely up there as excited as can be to see.
And of course, you know, maybe help Kelvin out.
You definitely want to like get him helping you out early.
Don't just leave him at the crash site.
Yeah.
And finally, Kelvin. Don't leave Kelvin behind, especially if you are a solo player and you want to play with him and have a nice AI teammate. As they've said, he's going to be very useful, especially early game. He could potentially be a sack of spuds later in the game, but early game he's going to be great for helping you get that initial shelter up and running, and potentially scavenging for food and all that good stuff that you're going to need to survive that first night. On the other hand though, if you are not a fan of an AI teammate, you could leave him there, or you could be really sadistic, be a friend of his, take him away, and then shoot him in the head. But remember, if you do shoot Kelvin in the head, he is gone from your session for good, so bear that in mind. So that is the developers' tips, and we did learn quite a little bit from them. Hopefully you guys have enjoyed today's video. If you have, please drop a like on the video, subscribe to the channel, and stick around for much more Forest content, because tomorrow at 9 PM GMT we'll be streaming the first part of the game, and then after that we're going to have guides, we're going to have gameplay, everything for you, and in between, all of the goodness. I'm so excited, as you can probably tell by my my rambling here at the end, but I'm very excited for this game, and we're going to cover it absolutely in full, right down to the bare bones. Stick around. I've been Wyatt, you've been awesome, thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.